Could your next breath carry the blueprint of your entire future? I used to think manifestation was all about focus, thinking positive, visualizing outcomes, repeating affirmations. And yes, those help. But something was missing. There was a deeper layer, a hidden mechanism beneath all that thinking. Then I met a man, an old yogi in the high Himalayan peaks near Tungnath Temple. What he shared with me changed everything I knew about the nature of desire, fulfillment, and reality itself. And it all began with something so simple, so often overlooked: breath. Today you will see what this yogi revealed to me, that your breath is more than just a physical process. It is your first teacher, your last companion, and the key that unlocks the power of assumption. We'll explore why Neville Goddard was right when he said, "Be still and know that I am God," and how the ancient science of breath aligns perfectly with this truth. By the end, you'll know how to use your breath to feel, deeply, consciously, and consistently, as if your desire were already fulfilled. Because when you breathe from the end, reality begins to obey. This is where ancient yogic wisdom meets Neville Goddard, where breath becomes the bridge, and where the secret you've been missing might just be hiding in your next inhale. Let me take you there, not metaphorically. I mean, really take you there, inwardly. You see, imagination is not daydreaming. It is the doorway to experience itself. So, imagine with me now, you are alone on a winding path carved into the side of the world's oldest mountains. The air is thin, not from exhaustion, but from reverence. Everything is still, as though time has stepped aside for something greater to enter. Your breath is short, uneven, not from fear, but from a question pressing at the edge of your soul. That's where I was, walking toward the ancient Tungnath Temple, far above the reach of cities or noise. A silence wrapped the mountain, a silence I had never heard with my ears but had always longed for with my being. And then I saw him. He didn't arrive. He was there, like a memory I had not yet lived. A yogi, seated in lotus, his body lean as if carved from the stones beneath him. His gaze, not at me but through me, and with no greeting, no introduction, he spoke. "The breath you ignore is the God you forgot." I stood still, unsure whether I had heard him outwardly or inwardly. He continued, "Before your first thought there was breath. Before your first word, breath. Even now your breath shapes your state, and your state shapes your world." And just like that, everything I had ever read about the law of assumption, everything I had practiced in silence, clicked. I had assumed things mentally, yes. I had persisted in imagining scenes, but I had overlooked the carrier wave, the vessel that moves the unseen into form. Breath. I asked him, "Do you mean that breath controls thought?" He shook his head gently. "Not controls. Breath reveals thought. Breath does not create emotion. It amplifies it. Your breath does not lie. If you want to know what you are truly assuming, do not ask your mind. Watch your breath." And suddenly, I understood. Neville once said, "Your assumption, to be effective, cannot be a single isolated act. It must be a maintained attitude of the wish fulfilled." But how does one maintain an attitude? Through breath. Not just a mechanical function, but a rhythmic declaration of your internal state. Every breath is a confession of what you believe yourself to be. Every inhale is an acceptance. Every exhale, a release of what no longer fits. The yogi leaned closer, not with his body but with his presence, and whispered a phrase I will never forget: "Control your breath, and your state will obey." And that was it. No further explanation. Just a presence so deep it didn't need one. I left that mountain changed, not in belief but in being, because now I saw it clearly. The breath is not separate from the imagination. It is its chariot. It is the rhythm by which the invisible becomes visible. You can assume wealth, love, healing, or peace, but if your breath still quivers with anxiety, you have not yet entered the state. This was the door I hadn't known I'd been knocking on, and it opened, not with effort, but with an inhale. Are you beginning to feel it? Can you sense even now that your breath is more than air? That it is the spirit of assumption itself, animating every reality you've ever called yours? Then let us go further. Let us descend not into mind, but into being. And there we will explore how your breath, when made conscious, becomes the very foundation of all manifestation. Breath as the core of manifestation. Breath is the first thing you did when you entered this world, and it will be the final act when you leave it. Everything else, your name, your story, your ambitions, arose after breath. So I ask you, why have we ignored the very rhythm that underlies our existence? The yogi was right. Neville was right. The breath is not just physiological, it is spiritual. It is the current by which states of consciousness rise and fall, the tide upon which your assumptions float or sink. I have said often that the world is your self pushed out. But what self? The self you carry into each moment with conviction, the self you breathe into existence. When you are angry, your breath shortens. When you are calm, it lengthens. When you fall in love, it softens. The breath is not just affected by your state, it is your state, externalized as rhythm. And what is a state? Neville writes, states are spiritual substances distinct from the individuals who enter them. You do not create a state. You enter one. You occupy it. And breath is how you settle into that invisible house. Do you see now? You can imagine a scene of wealth, success, love, and yet, if your breath is shallow, agitated, rushed, your body testifies against your vision. You have not entered the house. You have only looked at the window. But the moment you let your breath slow, deepen, open, something begins to shift. You are no longer thinking about the state. You are becoming it. Imagine a stage actor. He does not simply think the role. He breathes as the character. And so must you. You must breathe as the man who already has the job, as the woman who is already loved, as the one who has already succeeded. This is what the yogi meant. He said, the breath you ignore is the God you forgot. And Neville, long before I climbed that mountain, said the same in different words. Be still and know that I am God. Stillness is not passivity. It is power without noise. And your breath, when made still, when made conscious, unlocks that power. Try it now, without effort. Just observe your breath. Let it lengthen slightly. Let the inhale remind you of your infinite self. Let the exhale release everything you are not. Feel that? That moment of quiet awareness? That is the threshold, the very place where manifestation begins, not in thought, but in breath, not in striving, but in still presence. So the next time you wonder, why haven't I manifested this or that? Ask instead, have I breathed it into being? Let's move from concept into practice, because to breathe consciously is to step into the command seat of your reality, and it is there, through sacred rhythm, that your desire will begin to take shape. You do not need more willpower to manifest your desires. You need alignment between the body, the breath, and the assumption you hold as true. There are precise ways to use breath, not as a ritual but as a preparation. Just as you would tune an instrument before a concert, so must you tune the body before entering the sacred theater of imagination. The yogi taught me two methods. Neither were exotic nor mystical in appearance, but their power lies in their consistency and simplicity. The first is Kapalbhati, what the yogis call the skull-shining breath, a short, forceful exhale followed by a passive inhale. It clears mental fog and energizes the body. More than that, it clears away inner noise so you can hear the quiet voice of your inner world. The second is Anulam Vilom, or alternate nostril breathing. This balances the two hemispheres of the brain. It harmonizes logic and intuition, will and receptivity, necessary qualities for any creative act. But technique alone is not enough. Posture matters. Sit upright, spine long, shoulders relaxed. Why? Because your posture communicates with the subconscious. If you slouch, if you compress the chest, if you signal defeat, your breath becomes shallow, and your inner world responds accordingly. But when you sit tall, you are telling your being, I am open to receive, I am worthy, I am ready. I often remind students of this. The subconscious mind is not moved by words, it is moved by tone, feeling, rhythm, and breath is the most ancient rhythm of all. After a few minutes of breath work, you may begin to feel a quiet power within, a stillness that is not empty but pregnant. That is the ideal time to imagine. You are no longer forcing an image, you are inviting it. Neville said, you must enter into the image. You must make it real through feeling. But how can you feel clearly when your body is anxious and scattered? Breath prepares the vessel. It readies the temple for the divine act of assumption. Now imagine this as a simple daily ritual. You sit, you close your eyes, you breathe deeply, perhaps 10 rounds. You begin to feel calm, centered, whole. Then you allow the scene of your fulfilled desire to rise, not from effort, but from invitation. You breathe as the version of yourself who already has what they seek, and in that stillness, in that breath-infused silence, you feel the truth of it. You are not trying to convince yourself. You know, this is not imagination for fantasy. This is imagination for creation. This is the breath becoming belief and belief becoming fact. Never underestimate the sacred power of preparation. If you try to imagine your desire from a place of tension, doubt, or mental fatigue, you will struggle. But breathe first, align first, then assume. This is the secret the yogis have kept and the mystics have practiced in silence. That breath is the gateway, and through that gateway, your inner world becomes the outer. Before we go on, check the pinned comment. There's something there you'll want to keep close. One sentence can reset your entire state. You'll see what I mean. Now, let's get back to the breath of assumption. Your breathing pattern is not a background function. It is a mirror that reflects the state you dwell in, often more honestly than your thoughts ever will. I have said many times, assumption, though false, if persisted in, will harden into fact. But how do we know what assumption we are truly persisting in? We look to the breath. The mind may affirm abundance, but if the breath is shallow, constricted, nervous, then what are you truly assuming? You may speak words of confidence, yet breathe as one who fears the future. Breath exposes the gap between spoken belief and lived conviction. When I met the yogi on that Himalayan path, he did not ask me what I wanted. He asked me how I breathed, and now I understand why. Shallow breath says, I must protect myself. Something is lacking. I am not safe. Deep open breath declares, I am supported. I am already where I need to be. I am fulfilled. We are not speaking here of mere relaxation. We are speaking of embodiment, of the felt reality of your assumption. If you truly believed you were already successful, already chosen, already healed, would your body not breathe differently? Wouldn't your shoulders drop? Wouldn't your belly soften? Wouldn't your exhale lengthen, as if to say, there is nothing more I must chase? This is the breath of assumption. It is not something to force. It is something to observe. Notice how you breathe when you're waiting, when you're hoping, when you're worrying. Then compare it to how you breathe when you feel complete, when you know. This is why breath must be brought into the practice of manifestation, not as an accessory, but as a compass. It tells you where you truly are, not geographically, but spiritually. And from that awareness you can shift, not by suppressing fear or pretending to feel something you do not, but by breathing gently into a new state. Breath by breath, you can occupy the feeling of the wish fulfilled. You can feel the breath of the man who already has the success, the breath of the woman who is already in love, and you breathe it not to fool the world, but to announce to consciousness itself, this is who I am now, and the world, being yourself pushed out, must conform, not in time, but in law, because when the breath aligns with the assumption, you are no longer performing, you are being, and being is the only true cause of all that appears. You must visualize with emotionally charged intentions. Imagination is not simply about seeing, it is about feeling from. To visualize a desire without emotional substance is like painting with water. No color, no depth, no permanence. After preparing the breath, you enter the silence with a question, not with force. What would I feel if this were true? Not how do I make it happen, but how would I breathe, how would I sit, how would I move if I already were the one I desire to be? Neville once wrote, imagination is the only redemptive power in the universe. But imagination is not mental fantasy. It is creation's womb, and it is most fertile when it is saturated with intention and emotion. Let us make this practical. Suppose your desire is a new home. Do not begin by counting square footage or imagining color schemes. Instead, close your eyes and ask, why do I want this? Not to justify, but to connect. Is it security, peace, a space to create, a legacy for your children? Then go deeper. Whose life will be touched by this? Let the scene become not only about you, but about the ripple you will cause. Suddenly, the image is no longer static. It breathes. It has emotional gravity. The subconscious does not respond to logic. It responds to the feeling of certainty, of worthiness, of identity. When you imagine walking through that home, do not observe yourself like a stranger. Be yourself. Feel your feet touch the floor. Hear the quiet confidence in your voice. Smell the air. Let the breath that fills your chest be one of rest, not seeking. This is the secret. The emotional reason must match the visual desire. A picture without feeling will not impress the subconscious. A scene felt deeply, even for seconds, leaves an indelible mark. Neville said, "You rise to a higher level of being by assuming the feeling of the wish fulfilled. This is not philosophy. This is instruction. To assume the feeling is to inhabit it so completely that the outer world has no choice but to reshape itself around you. So do not ask, 'How do I make this real?' Ask, 'Can I feel it now even faintly? Can I breathe as though it were already mine?' When the breath flows in harmony with your vision, when your posture matches your new identity, and when your emotional charge is sincere, manifestation becomes inevitable, not by forcing reality to change, but by accepting that it already has. Repetition and secrecy enhance results. The conscious mind learns through repetition, and the subconscious accepts only what is impressed upon it consistently and with feeling. One moment of intense emotion may plant the seed, but it is repetition that waters it into form. Neville wrote, "Persistence in imagining that which you desire to be awakens in you the tone of reality. And tone is everything. The tone of your inner speech, the rhythm of your breath, the frequency of your attention. All of these are shaped and strengthened through repeated assumption. So repeat your imaginal scene, not mechanically but with presence. 4 to 6 times in a sitting is enough. Twice a day is powerful. Morning, when the mind is soft, and evening, when the veil between worlds begins to thin. Let each repetition deepen your certainty, not by effort but by familiarity. It begins to feel normal, natural, expected, and as the assumption begins to feel ordinary, the extraordinary begins to unfold. Now, a word on silence. Speak not of your desire. When you share your imaginal acts with others, especially in the early stages, you divide the energy. You invite opinions, projections, disbelief. The imaginal act, still tender and forming, becomes vulnerable to interruption. Neville was clear. Do not discuss your ambition or desire. Just act as though it were already so, and let the silence work for you. Secrecy is not superstition. It is stewardship. Imagine a seed planted in the soil. You do not dig it up every day to check its growth. You protect it. You water it. You give it warmth. And you trust that what was placed in the dark will soon rise into the light. The same is true for your assumptions. Repeat them inwardly. Feel them deeply. Guard them quietly. This inner sanctum is not a prison, but a sanctuary. It is where the breath, the feeling, and the image become one, and when they do, there is no force in the world that can keep that vision from appearing, because it already has, in the only place that matters, within you. There is a space so small, most never notice it. It lies between the inhale and the exhale, between the exhale and the inhale. It is neither doing nor undoing. It is being. The yogis called it kumbhaka, the still point of breath. But what it truly is the still point of self. Neville said, "Be still and know that I am God." This is not poetry. It is instruction. The stillness he refers to is not only the quieting of mind, but the halting of breath. For it is in that subtle pause that you meet the I am, stripped of desire, effort, or form. It is the moment where imagination no longer tries to become something. It simply is. Close observation of your breath will show you this. After every inhale, there is a moment where you do not breathe at all. And again, after every exhale, a moment of suspension. In these moments, something sacred occurs. Thought fades. Time loses shape. What remains is pure consciousness. And this consciousness is where all creation begins. When you learn to enter that silence, not forcibly, but by allowing, you step into the origin of assumption itself, the place before belief, the space before identity. It is from here that you can feel the deepest truth, that what you seek, you already are. Most look for evidence in the outer world, but manifestation does not begin with proof. It begins with stillness, with awareness, with the breath suspended long enough for the soul to whisper its name. In the silence between breaths, you are not rich or poor, loved or unloved, healed or sick. You are only I am, and from this I am you may affix any quality you choose. I am free, I am secure, I am loved, and the breath resumes, carrying that name, that assumption, into the body, into the field, into the world. Learn to rest in the space between breaths, and you will begin to create, not with strain but with silence, not with noise, but with knowing. There are those who believe manifestation is nothing more than fantasy, a hopeful dream wrapped in spiritual language. But the mind, both conscious and subconscious, is structured to bring forth exactly what you dwell upon, not symbolically, but biologically. Within your brain lies a network known as the reticular activating system. The RAS is the gatekeeper of attention. It filters the millions of signals that enter your awareness every second and decides, based on your internal focus, what is important and what is not. This is not theory, it is function. If you decide to buy a red car, you begin to see red cars everywhere. Were they not there before? Of course they were, but your RAS had no reason to show them to you. Your focus gave the signal. Your assumption wrote the code. Neville explained this in his own language. Change your conception of yourself and you will automatically change the world in which you live. The conception comes first. The shift in perception follows. Now pair this with breath and feeling, and something powerful begins to happen. You visualize not from want but from fulfillment. You breathe in the state of the wish fulfilled, and the RAS, trained by this new pattern, begins to guide your attention toward everything that supports it. You hear opportunities in conversations you used to ignore. You notice people, paths, ideas that seem to suddenly appear. They did not suddenly exist. You simply tuned the instrument of your awareness. The world rearranges itself, not by some mysterious force but by the rearrangement of your attention. This is manifestation as both mystical and mechanical, a union of breath, assumption, and attention. The moment you feel it real and breathe it real, you command the systems of your body and brain to follow that lead. This is not magic, it is law. To breathe from the end is to embody the conclusion of your desire before a single outer fact confirms it. It is the essence of Neville's teaching. Not to wish, not to hope, but to live as though the wish were already fulfilled, and to let the breath carry that truth through your entire being. Most approach manifestation with effort. They try to get to the state, but the moment you try, you affirm separation. Breathing from the end reverses this. It assumes, I am already the one I desire to be. This is not fantasy, it is identity. A shift in self-perception so complete that the body begins to respond. Ask yourself now, sincerely, if I already had the love, the health, the abundance, how would I be breathing? Your breath would not be grasping, shallow, or anxious. It would be calm, settled, sure. It would not reach forward. It would rest in arrival. This is what the Yogi showed me without saying a word. His breath did not speak of desire. It spoke of completion. When I began to experiment with this, I noticed something remarkable. My entire nervous system shifted. My spine straightened not from effort but from presence. My hands relaxed. My inner dialogue softened. And more than that, my reality began to mirror this quiet inner knowing. Neville wrote, "You must dare to assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled. To dare is to breathe it in fully, not just in imagination, but in form. This is why breath must accompany visualization. It anchors the image. It confirms the new identity. It bridges the gap between idea and experience. So let your next breath be an act of faith. Inhale as the one who already is. Exhale in the confidence that nothing more must be done. Breathe from the end, and the end will begin." As I stood atop that Himalayan ridge, the cold air brushing against my face and the earth stretching endlessly below me, something subtle yet profound took root within me. It was not a voice, not even a thought, just a knowing, a shift, a soft but unshakable realization that everything I had ever searched for was already within me, and more than that, it had always been within me. We spend our lives looking outward, toward methods, systems, teachers, validations. We pursue books, rituals, even spiritual practices, hoping they will finally grant us the power to change our world. But the power does not lie in the practice alone. It lies in being. And being is not reached through more effort. It is accessed through stillness, awareness, and identity. Breath is the living signature of who you are assuming yourself to be. This is the deepest truth the Yogi left me with, not in the form of a lecture or teaching, but in his very presence. He did not preach manifestation, he breathed it. His breath was his identity. He didn't try to be peaceful, he breathed as peace. He didn't strive to be free. He exhaled as if nothing in the world could bind him. His breath was not reacting to the world, it was commanding it. That is when I understood the connection between the law of assumption and the breath. Neville said, "Assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled and continue in that assumption until it becomes your dominant feeling." But many struggle with this. They assume for a moment, maybe even a day, but the world does not change immediately, so they abandon the state. They say, I tried, and it didn't work. But they did not continue in the assumption. They visited the feeling instead of dwelling in it. And breath, dear friends, is how you dwell. To dwell in a state is to breathe as the one who lives there. Every time you inhale in fear, in doubt, in grasping, you reinforce the belief that what you seek is separate from you. But when you inhale as the one who already possesses, who already is, you dissolve the illusion of distance. Your breath is not incidental, it is instructional. It is shaping your chemistry, your emotional signature, and your relationship to your desire every moment of the day. If you speak abundance but breathe as if you are burdened, which voice do you think your body listens to? Which voice does your subconscious obey? The subconscious does not respond to declarations alone. It responds to embodiment. And breath is embodiment. So let us return to what this truly means. Manifestation is not the outcome of trying harder. It is the result of deeper being. It is not about scripting more affirmations, but about recognizing that the assumption of the wish fulfilled is a total state, mental, emotional, physiological, and breath is the thread that weaves them together. You do not need to strive to manifest your desire. You need only to breathe from the end. Imagine the difference between these two states. One says, please let it happen. I am doing everything I can. The other breathes and says, it is done. I am who I choose to be. Which one do you think the universe mirrors? When you begin to live in the breath of the fulfilled state, you carry no resistance. You stop checking for results. You stop trying to force reality to change. You stop reacting to the world and start generating it, quietly, faithfully, consistently. This is the essence of what I want you to carry forward. There is nothing outside you. Everything you experience begins within, through assumption, through feeling, and most powerfully, through breath. Neville's work was not meant to become another philosophy to admire. It was meant to awaken in you the truth that you are the operant power, not the passive recipient of fate, but the conscious chooser of reality. And the yogi, through silence, through breath, through presence, affirmed that truth to me in a language older than words. Let your breath now become your practice. Let it become your sanctuary, not only when you sit down to visualize, but as you move through your day. Are you breathing as the one who is still waiting, or as the one who has already received? Every moment gives you the chance to return to your assumption, not by thinking harder, but by being it, by breathing as it. If you are manifesting love, breathe as one who is loved, not later but now. If you are manifesting wealth, breathe as one who is secure, not one day, but today. If you are manifesting healing, breathe as one who is whole, not in hope, but in fact. And then observe, not the outer world, but the inner. Watch how peace begins to rise. Watch how fear begins to lose its grip. And soon, without striving, without needing to be noticed, your outer world begins to shape itself around the breath you have chosen to live by. This is the breath of God, the breath of assumption, the breath of the fulfilled desire. Carry it with you. Do not complicate it. Do not delay it. Just return, again and again, to the breath that matches who you already are in imagination. And the rest will follow. It must. It is law. All that you've heard points to a simple but powerful truth. Manifestation is not achieved through effort, but through alignment. Alignment of thought, feeling, breath, and identity. The yogi didn't teach through explanation. He revealed something through presence. Neville's words echoed the same truth. What you assume to be true of yourself hardens into fact. And breath is the quiet witness of that assumption. If your breath is shallow, uncertain, or rushed, you're likely holding a state of lack. But when you breathe slowly, fully, with ease, you confirm a different reality, one where your desire is already yours. The breath does not lie. It shows you exactly who you believe you are, and with awareness it becomes the most natural way to shift into a new identity, not by thinking about change, but by being the change. So begin by observing. How do you breathe when you feel safe, loved, successful? How does that version of you move, sit, speak? Let that be your reference point, not the current facts, but the fulfilled self. You don't need to force outcomes. You need only to remain faithful to the feeling of the wish fulfilled. Let the breath become your anchor. Let it be the quiet signal that says, it is done. And if you're still curious, check the pinned comment. There's something there you'll want to see.